Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive? Today we're looking at Native American voter engagement as we head into the 2024 election.
Great topic.
Yeah, we've got a really interesting mix of sources for this one too.
Oh yeah, like what?
So we've got news articles, we've got press releases, and even a personal essay from a student.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And I think what's really interesting is how this election cycle just brings to light all the different challenges and opportunities that these communities face.
Absolutely. And, we always hear about how every vote matters, but these sources really drive that message home.
Yeah, for sure.
Like it's eye-opening. Like take Oklahoma, for example.
Okay.
Native Americans make up 13% of the state's population.
That's huge.
It is huge. Yet historically, their voices just haven't been proportionally represented at the ballot box.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's a pattern that we see in a lot of different places around the country. And it's not even just about individual votes either. It's the systemic barriers that have been put in place that often, target these communities.
Exactly. And that's why we're going to dig into initiatives like the Warrior Up to Vote campaign.
Okay.
Have you heard about this one?
I have, yeah.
It's amazing, right?
It's really cool. It's a really great example of grassroots organizing.
Yeah.
And it's led by the United Indian Nations of Oklahoma.
Okay.
Or UINO.
Gotcha.
And basically, they're going on this mission to register voters and amplify Native American voices. And they do it through this biannual statewide tour.
Biannually.
Yeah.
Wow, that's dedication.
It is. They're literally trying to reach every single tribe in Oklahoma.
Wow.
And they're battling a pretty tough statistic because Oklahoma consistently ranks last in the nation for voter participation.
Oh, wow.
Like 50th.
Really?
Yeah.
So Warrior Up to Vote is really fighting an uphill battle.
They are, but they're making a difference.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, hundreds of new voters, registered discrepancies resolved. And I think most importantly, it's bringing this sense of empowerment to these communities,
For sure. It's more than just checking a box at that point.
Yeah, it really is. It's about reclaiming that rightful place in the democratic process.
Absolutely.
And this is something that's not just limited to Oklahoma either.
Right.
We're seeing this surge in voter engagement all across the country.
It's inspiring to see for sure, take the Native Americans for Harris Wolf's campaign, for example.
Okay.
They're really trying to make sure that those voices are heard at the national level.
Yeah, it's a dedicated initiative within the Harris Walz presidential campaign. And I think the fact that Minnesota Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, who is Native American,
right,
that she is speaking to their commitment to tribal communities, I think it holds a lot of weight.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you've got the broader Native Vote 2024 movement, too.
Yeah. And that one is nonpartisan, right?
It is.
Which is fantastic.
It is.
Because it really is about getting those crucial Native issues on everyone's radar this election.
Yeah, Native News Online has been covering this movement extensively and highlighting the importance of voter registration, voter education, and just amplifying those issues in the election.
Now, this power is really evident in states like Arizona, where the margins were razor thin in the last election.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, let's take a closer look at some of the unique challenges that Navajo voters face.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You mentioned Arizona, and that's a really good example of a place where Native American voter turnout could be a deciding factor.
Yeah.
Our sources talk about the Navajo Nation, which covers a significant part of the state.
Right. And that geographic reality must create some hurdles for voters.
Absolutely.
I was reading about this group called Wingbeat 88.
Okay.
And they're working directly with the Navajo Nation.
Yeah, they are. And they're using this interesting strategy called kinship organizing to try to empower voters.
So instead of just sending out flyers or doing social media blasts,
yeah,
they're actually meeting people where they are and making those connections.
Yeah, exactly. Think about it.
Yeah.
Many Navajo voters have to travel to two separate polling places.
What?
One for tribal elections and one for state and federal elections.
Wow. I did not realize that.
Yeah.
That makes their work even more important.
It does. It makes participation really difficult, especially in a place where transportation is hard to come by and can be costly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And are they seeing results from these efforts?
They are.
Okay, good.
Wingbeat 88 has helped almost 8,900 Navajo citizens update their voter registration information.
Wow, that's amazing.
Which is incredible.
It really speaks to the power of, this really personalized community-driven approach.
It does.
And it makes you think about those 2020 election results in Arizona.
Yeah.
Trump lost by less than 11,000 votes.
Right.
So every vote really does matter.
Every vote matters. And, considering the attempts to suppress voting, like the one from the Republican National Committee that's happening right now in Arizona,
Right.
it's definitely concerning.
Yeah, they're saying that potentially 40,000 voters could be disenfranchised,
Yeah,
many of whom would be Native American.
a lot of them.
And it's like suddenly the stakes are even higher.
Yeah, it really underscores just how fragile voting rights are. And it shows why groups like Wingbeat 88 UINO, the United Indian Nations of Oklahoma,
Right.
and even that broader Native Vote 2024 movement are so important.
Yeah.
It's not just about the individual votes.
Right.
It's about ensuring that these communities have their voices heard.
Absolutely. And amidst all of this, we have people like Rory Wheeler who are stepping up and advocating for their communities.
Exactly.
And his story that he shares in that essay is so powerful.
His story is incredible. He talks about being a Seneca Nation advocate and interning with the Seneca Nation government, serving as a White House Tribal Nations youth ambassador.
Oh, wow.
And now he's in law school at Michigan State working with the Indian Law Clinic.
Talk about dedication.
I know, right?
He says, as a proud citizen of the Seneca Nation, my identity is deeply intertwined with the history and culture of Indigenous peoples.
It's powerful.
Yeah, it really is.
And then he goes on to say, these teachings instilled in me a profound sense of responsibility to honor the 7 generations that came before me and to protect the well-being of the 7 generations to come.
Wow.
Powerful.
Right.
It really is. And that really connects back to the urgency of this election.
Yeah, for sure.
It really makes you wonder what's at stake here for these communities, for the future of tribal sovereignty.
For sure. It's about making sure that Native Americans have a voice in the decisions that directly affect their lands, their resources, their cultures, their right to self-determination.
And especially when you think about the historical context, the fight for voting rights is still happening.
Absolutely.
And the fact that there are still attempts to disenfranchise voters, it's
scary.
It is. It's a little scary.
It really highlights the question of like, who has the power?
Right.
Who gets to say what the future looks like and whose voices aren't being heard? It's a big deal. And I think this is where Rory's story, along with all the amazing work that groups like UINO and Wingbeat 88 are doing, offers a really, optimistic look at the future.
For sure.
Like they're showing us that even with all these obstacles, there's still this like deep commitment to making sure that Native voices are heard, to protecting their rights, and honestly just creating a better future.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds us that every vote, every single voice matters, and that real change happens when people feel empowered to take part in the process.
So as we move closer to this election, let's remember those stories that we've heard today.
Yeah.
The challenges and the dedication to making sure that every single voice is heard.
Because ultimately the future of democracy depends on it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for diving in with me today.
Yeah, of course. This was great.
And all our listeners out there, make sure to check back in with us next time for another deep dive.